Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're plunging headfirst into a truly seismic, really transformative period that utterly reshaped the map and destiny of Europe.
We really are. It's the late 4th and 5th centuries we're looking at.
Right, a time when ancient empires buckled under, well, unimaginable pressure, and entirely new peoples, new identities emerged, forging their very existence on the ashes, you could say, of the old world.
It's often painted as just raw chaos and destruction, isn't it? But when you look closer, within that maelstrom, you see these incredible feats of adaptation, resilience, and the fascinating formation of identities. These identities would, in turn, define the successor kingdoms for centuries. It's much more complex than just barbarians against Rome.
Absolutely offers surprising insights into how power, culture, faith, how they all intertwine.
Exactly.
In this part, we will talk about the dramatic, frankly terrifying arrival of the Huns, the subsequent separation and profound realignment of the Gothic peoples, and the key moments that just utterly reshaped the map of Europe.
We'll trace the journeys of groups like the Tervingi and Gruthambi, names you'll get familiar with.
Desperate journeys, often brutal ones. We'll delve deep into the political and religious transformations they went through and examine the critical figures who, somehow, navigated this incredibly dangerous and tumultuous era.
Figures like Theodoric, Fritigern. We'll get into them.
Yeah. This deep dive will hopefully illuminate how relentless external pressures and complex internal dynamics forged entirely new identities. And in doing so, irrevocably set the stage for the powerful successor kingdoms that eventually popped up on what was once solely Roman soil.
It really is a gripping narrative. Survival, shifting power, and the surprising, often violent ways diverse cultures collide and, well, interact.
So let's unpack this. Let's start with that first truly cataclysmic event that kicked this whole saga off. The sudden, terrifying appearance of the Huns in Europe. Around 375 AD, right?
That's the time frame, yeah. And seemingly out of nowhere, this formidable new power establishes itself along the Danubian plain, specifically southern part of Old Roman Dacia.
So what did that initial arrival mean? Can you paint a picture for us?
Well, imagine a storm front. Not just weather, but a completely new, incredibly fearsome human force sweeping in. It just dramatically altered the geopolitical landscape almost overnight.
Wow.
The Huns were nomadic, utterly unlike anyone the established powers had really encountered before. Known for their incredible horsemanship, their military prowess.
Right.
Their strategic settlement right there on the Danube had immediate, profound consequences. For one, it effectively blocked direct contact between the Ostrogoths, that's the eastern branch of the Goths,
Okay.
and the established Christian centers further south. Think of it like a huge barrier, geographical and cultural, suddenly thrown up.
So it just cut off established pathways, trade, communication.
Exactly. And maybe most crucially, the continued flow of religious influence from the Roman Empire to the Gothic communities, like a spiritual highway suddenly declared closed, immediate isolation.
Right, so more than just physical. A profound cultural and religious barrier, too. Our sources say the Hunnic cultural and religious stance was, well, starkly opposed to what the Goths were increasingly embracing.
That's critical. They completely rejected Christianity.
Completely.
Utterly. Even as a political tool, which was unusual, this immediately created this deep cultural, ideological chasm with the Goths, many of whom were already Christianizing, you know, through Roman interaction captives. This religious difference wasn't just theological. It quickly became a huge factor in the political maneuvering, the clashes that followed. Religious identity got tangled right up with political allegiances.
Complicating an already volatile situation.
Immensely. It created an us versus them dynamic beyond just fighting over land.
And before the Goths even really started migrating into the Roman Empire in large numbers, these Hunnic assaults just overran their homeland north of the Black Sea.
Yeah.
It wasn't gradual.
No, not at all. An overwhelming, terrifying assault. No room for adaptation. It wasn't conquest in the usual sense, more like a catastrophic disruption that forced a dramatic existential choice on the Goths. They couldn't stay.
So what were the options?
Facing this relentless advance, some Gothic groups just fled. Uprooted everything, desperate flight for safety. Others weren't so lucky, fell directly under Hunnic dominion. Became subjects, not independent peoples.
Wow. That moment marks a fundamental split then.
Absolutely. An irreversible turning point. fragmented the Goths, set them on divergent paths. The psychological impact, the sheer terror, the need for life or death decisions, hard to overstate.
So for those Goths who didn't flee, they ended up under Hunnic rule. But you mentioned it wasn't a simple master-slave thing. It was more complex.
Exactly. It's crucial to understand how the Hunnic Empire actually worked. As quintessential nomads, militarily dominant, yes, but they relied heavily on subject peoples.
Like the Goths and Gepids.
Most notably, yes. Various Germanic tribes. These conquered groups provided essential manpower, sure, but maybe more critically, the sedentary skills a nomadic society lacks.
Like farming, metalworking.
Everything from agriculture to metalworking, administration, holding territory. So the conquered Goths weren't just passive victims, they were crucial, active components of the Hunnic system, a vital foundation for their huge polyethnic empire.
Without them, the Hunnic way of life wouldn't have been sustainable on that scale.
Simply wouldn't have worked, no.
So in a strange twist, Gothic warriors end up serving in Attila's army, at the height of Hunnic power. We see them at the Battle of the Catalonian Field in 451.
A prime example. It shows their compelled service, but also their undeniable military value. That so many Goths were forced to fight for the Huns, sometimes against other Goths or Romans, it shows the Huns' power.
But what's really striking, Jordanes, a Goth himself.
Rice, or key source.
He proudly declared that Attila valued the Goths and Gepids above all his other subjects. What does that tell us?
It's not just an offhand comment. It highlights their exceptional military skill, their strategic importance within the Hunnic Confederation. It speaks to this complex dynamic. Subjugated, yes, but their abilities were recognized, even celebrated by their conquerors.
Grudging respect, maybe? Born of necessity.
You could say that. They weren't just cannon fodder, they were critical parts of Attila's war machine. It's a deep paradox. The very people fleeing the Huns ended up becoming the muscle for their empire.
And for some Goths, this wasn't short-lived. The Ostrogoths, the eastern branch, were under the Hunnic yoke for nearly 80 years, from about 376 to 454 AD.
An extraordinarily long time, tested the very fabric of their identity.
How do they maintain their identity, their political structure, through all that?
Well, they were, in a way, permitted to keep their own kings, but these rulers were always explicitly subservient to Hunnic power. Kings in name, for internal tribal stuff, but ultimate authority, severely curtailed, subject to Hunnic whims.
So a delicate balance. Huns used existing structures, Goths kept a semblance of identity.
Exactly. It wasn't full absorption, but a distinct, often oppressive, controlled existence. Their sovereignty was compromised, but their identity persisted, like trying to steer your ship with another, stronger ship chained to yours.
And this leads to where it gets really interesting. Nothing lasts forever, right? Even this seemingly invincible Hunnic empire, it proved incredibly fragile.
It did, and its dramatic disintegration began abruptly. The unexpected death of Attila in 453 AD.
The sources describe a really dramatic end, a nasal hemorrhage after a wedding banquet, with a Gothic woman named Ildico.
An almost darkly comic, yet profoundly significant end for the scourge of God. Attila's sudden, rather inglorious death was the catalyst. It shattered the fragile unity of his vast empire.
He was the glue holding it all together.
He was the charismatic, fearsome figure, sheer force of will, military genius, that mythical reputation, holding this incredibly diverse polyethnic empire together. His sudden removal created this immense immediate leadership vacuum.
And none of his successors could fill it.
Not even close.
His sons lacked his charisma, his unique ability.
Precisely. Charisma, for a nomadic empire, isn't just nice to have, it's essential. Attila's genius wasn't just warfare, but inspiring fear, loyalty, common purpose among varied groups. His sons couldn't command that same respect or obedience.
So this leadership vacuum was immediately exploited.
Instantly. The perfect opportunity for the subject peoples who'd been chafing under Hunnic rule for decades. They saw their chance, almost an invitation, to rise up and reclaim their independence, a domino effect waiting to happen.
And the ultimate clash, the one that sealed the deal, was the Battle of Adrianople in 454 AD, driven by the Gepid revolt led by King Ardaric.
Yes, Ardaric rallied others, including those long-suffering Ostrogoths, against Attila's sons. Adrianople was the final, desperate struggle for liberation.
In Pannonia.
In Pannonia, and Jordanes again gives this vivid, almost poetic description. A roll call of liberation, really showing its polyethnic nature.
What did he say?
He described a spectacle worthy of admiration to behold the Goth fighting with his spears, the Gepid enraged with his sword, the Rugian breaking darts in his own wounds, the Suev boasting of his slings and the Hun of his arrows, the Alan forming his army of heavy armor and the Herul his of light armor. It paints this kaleidoscopic picture, all these peoples united against their oppressors.
Each bringing their own fighting style.
Exactly. A desperate, unified struggle for freedom. The stakes couldn't have been higher.
And the victory for this rebel coalition was decisive.
Overwhelmingly so. Absolutely crushed the remaining Hunnic power. Attila's sons were routed, some fled east, others faded away, and the great mythical Hunnic Empire just vanished from history almost as fast as it appeared.
An explosion of ethnic groups.
Reasserting independence, redrawing the map. For the Ostrogoths, it meant they could finally settle. Found a new home in Pannonia under leaders like Valamir, Theodomir, Vidimir, a new independent chapter.
A new beginning.
And interestingly, some Hunnic soldiers, empire gone, just pragmatically enrolled in Byzantine armies.
Yeah.
Shows the fluidity of allegiances, Hashtag the Great Gothic Migration and the shaping of new identities.
So the Hunnic storm fundamentally changes the landscape. Now let's shift to the Great Gothic Migration itself and how new identities were shaped. This brings us to that pivotal moment. The Tervingi and Greuthungi crossing the Danube. 376-377 AD. Not a planned invasion, you said.
Absolutely not. Quite the opposite. This initial crossing was desperate, an existential flight from the Huns. In 376, the Tervingi, a major Gothic group, got permission from Rome to settle inside its borders.
Permission, so it was an agreement.
Born of necessity. Goths needed refuge. Rome maybe thought it could control them, use them. A deal forged under immense pressure from the east.
But the Tervingi were already in a terrible state before asking Rome for help. Roman campaigns, flooding.
A perfect storm of calamities, yes. Weakened by a Roman campaign in 367, then hit by floods in 368, catastrophic harvest loss, starvation looming, trade with Rome cut off.
Desperate situation.
And Theodoric, the Tervingi judge then, despite all this, stuck to his strategy. Resist Roman demands. He chose a difficult peace, an uneasy truce, rather than annihilation or total capitulation, caught between a rock and a hard place.
Okay, so the Tervingi get permission. But then, shortly after, 377 AD, the Greuthungi, another big group, crossed too, but without permission.
This distinction is absolutely crucial. The sources are clear. Greuthungi used rafts, set up a separate camp, distance from Fritigern's Tervingi, unauthorized.
And that just lit the fuse.
That unauthorized crossing, combined with the terrible mismanagement and exploitation of the Tervingi with permission by Roman officials, it directly triggered the Gothic revolt led by Fritigern, turned a plea for refuge into outright conflict.
The Romans couldn't handle the number.
Overwhelmed logistically, administratively, led to chaos, distrust, exploitation, and then explosion.
Which brings us to the Marcianopolis incident. Roman General Lupitinus invites Tervingi leaders Alaviv and Fritigern to a feast for reconciliation.
A catastrophic failure of diplomacy, fueled by Roman arrogance and Gothic desperation. Lupitinus's reconciliation was likely an attempt to assert authority, maybe even take them hostage.
And then fighting breaks out.
Between the Gothic escort and Roman guards outside, Lupicinus makes a fatal error, orders the Gothic escort cut down. In the chaos, Fritigern manages to escape.
But Alavi,
his name just vanishes from history right there, almost certainly killed. This incident wasn't just a spark. It confirmed the Goths' worst fears about Roman treachery, ignited this pent-up fury,
and solidified Fritigern's leadership.
Made him the avenger of his people.
You can just imagine the anger, the fear. Fritigern, free and enraged, leads an open revolt in early 377 AD, sweeping across the land, burning, plundering.
Immediate and devastating response. Driven by revenge and sheer need, they swept through Thrace, burning villas, farms, taking what they needed.
And Lupicinus, the general responsible.
He hastily raised troops, mostly poor regional forces, but his incompetence was fatal. Suffered a massive defeat just 9 miles from his HQ. He was killed. The Thracian regional forces basically wiped out.
A huge initial success for Fritigern.
Absolutely. Solidified his leadership, sent shockwaves through the Eastern Empire, showed the power of a desperate, unified Gothic people. This was no mere border skirmish.
So incredible early momentum. But then they hit a literal wall. Roman cities. They tried Adrianople, even Constantinople.
And this highlights that key limitation. Great in open battle, devastating against field armies. But they lacked the specialized siegecraft, the Polia Setica, to take major walled cities.
Just couldn't breach the walls.
Both attempts failed decisively. It required engineering, logistics for a long siege, a different tactical mindset. Skills these migrating groups hadn't developed. Their warfare was swift, open field.
So even as they ravaged the countryside, Roman power centers held.
Exactly. Offered a base for counterattacks, a reminder of Roman resilience.
And this is where Emperor Theodosius VI comes in. 379 AD, proclaimed emperor in the East, described as having firm character, valor, intelligence. He raised morale.
His intervention was crucial. He inherited utter military and moral collapse. His first challenge was psychological restoring faith, did it through discipline, caution, and significantly smart diplomacy.
He didn't just try to crush them militarily.
He understood outright annihilation might not be feasible or even desirable. He sought to exploit internal Gothic divisions, offer a path to integration. This led to splits within the Goths themselves.
And two crucial peace treaties.
Right. First, in 380 AD, the Western Emperor Gratian halted hostilities with the Greuthungo-Alans and their Hunnic allies under Alythius and Saphrax, settled them in Pannonia as federates.
Federates, meaning?
They kept their own leaders, but had to provide military service to Rome for land and supplies.
Okay. And the second treaty.
381 AD, Theodosius made peace with the Tervingi-Fritigurns group. They became federates in October 382, settled in northern Thrace and Moesia, south of the Danube. Same deal. Military service for provisions.
Shrewd diplomacy by Theodosius.
Very. Turned enemies into auxiliary forces, aimed to bring them under Roman influence, albeit with significant autonomy.
What about Athanaric, the unyielding judge? Where was he in all this?
Athanaric. After conflicts and the Hunnic threat, he'd taken refuge north of the Carpathians. Still fiercely independent, representing that older, pagan Gothic identity.
But Theodosius won him over.
Won over might be strong. Theodosius saw him as useful a counterbalance to other Gothic leaders, a way to exploit internal disputes. Bringing Athanaric into the Roman fold was strategic.
But his time in the spotlight was brief.
Very brief. He died in Constantinople in 381 AD, shortly after aligning with Rome. The sources say he was just awestruck by the city's majesty.
Roman writers called it inconceivable for his barbarian mind.
Which tells you more about Roman attitudes, maybe. But it does highlight the sheer scale of Constantinople compared to the world Athanaric knew, a real clash of worlds.
Okay, let's dive deeper into something fundamental. The names and identities of the Goths. Not straightforward, you said.
Not at all. It's vital. The term Guthiuda, Gothic people, that was their own word, their folk language term for the pagan Gothic lands north of the Danube in the 4th century. Original name, probably Gutans.
So they had a self-identified group name before the Romans started labeling them.
Exactly. A shared language, culture, an internal sense of collective identity before Roman classification tried to categorize them, often simplifying things.
And this connection to Scandinavia? Mythical, perhaps, but persistent?
It is a rich area. Imperial ethnography recognized continental Gutan and Scandinavian Guten. Later Scandinavian Gauten appear, likely connections to modern Gutar in Sweden and the island Gotland's name.
Legends, too, leaving due to overpopulation and arriving on ships.
High medieval legends from Gotland talk of leaving due to overpopulation. Pomeranian legends mention ancestors arriving on 3 ships from across the sea, just like in Jordanes Getica.
Jordanes again.
Right. These narratives, chronologically fuzzy, serving later agendas maybe, but they underscore this shared migratory identity, this distant ancestral home in the north, deep in Gothic memory, gave them a sense of ancient lineage.
So they had this foundational identity, but then Rome starts labeling them, leads to a dual naming system.
Precisely. Romans needed to differentiate. By 291 AD, Western Goths are first called Tervingi in Roman sources. But the full system, distinguishing the main branches, became widely known about a century later.
Tervingi Vesi for the west, Grutungi Ostrogothi for the east.
That's the one. Suggests internal differentiation happening alongside Roman efforts to categorize them.
And the names themselves meant something, reflected geography or aspirations.
Often did. Tervingi Waldleut, forest people, suggests habitat, maybe fighting style. Grutungi, Steppen and Strandbewohner, Steppenman shore dwellers, closer to the Black Sea plains.
And aspirational meanings, too.
Visi, the good, the noble, self-image of virtue. Ostrogothan the shining, or sunrise Goths. Eastern location, maybe future glory. While historians debate the exact etymologies, the sources say these meanings were accepted then, shaping perceptions.
Now, Jordanes and Casiodorus, seen as foundational, the definitive story almost.
It is foundational, but you have to understand how and its biases. Revised in Constantinople around 550 from Casiodorus' earlier work, it hugely shaped later understanding.
It proposed that link between the 238 AD Goths and King Berg leaving Scandia.
Yes. Left in 3 ships, landed on the Pomeranian coast, moved to Ukraine. It's an interpretative framework. Jordanes' Romanized perspective, applying Roman ethnographic methods, giving them a grand origin story.
Legitimizing later Gothic kingdoms.
Exactly, as heirs to an ancient noble tradition.
But modern historians challenge this picture, this direct continuity between Tervingi-Greutungi and the later Visigoth Ostrogoths.
This is a key insight, yes. It really upends the old view. Modern scholarship questions that neat genealogical line Jordanes drew. The 4th century origins of the later 5th, 6th century Goths are, well, murkier.
How so?
By 400 AD, most known 4th century Goths were south of the Danube, in Roman territory. But then substantial new Gothic groups appear after this. How? Either a massive improbable population explosion during chaotic migrations.
Unlikely.
Demographically unlikely, yeah. Or, more plausibly, more than just 2 independent Gothic groups existed north of the Black Sea before the Huns even attacked.
Implying a much more fragmented reality.
Exactly. A shifting mosaic, not a fixed family tree. Groups splintered, reformed, maybe adopted new team names under pressure. Realigned through shared migration, conflict, alliances to form the larger Visigoth and Ostrogoth entities we know.
Not a simple lineage from just 2 groups.
Right. It really underscores the fluid, dynamic nature of barbarian identity then. It wasn't static. It was forged and reforged in the fires of migration, war, cultural interaction. Groups merged, split, redefined themselves. A powerful lesson in how ethnic identity gets constructed. #tag Christianity and political identity amidst chaos.
Let's shift gears to faith's role. Christianity's spread was massive in shaping Gothic identity amidst all this chaos, wasn't it? Even before the big migrations in the 370s, many Goths had converted.
Indeed, the seed was planted much earlier, took root quietly long before the mass migrations. Many early converts were descendants of Christian captives taken during Gothic raids across the Black Sea in the 250s, 260s.
So faith spreading through the victims of conflict.
A fascinating, dark aspect of cultural transmission shows how intertwined conflict and cultural exchange could be.
And the central figure here is Ulfila, apostle to the Goths. Who was he?
A truly remarkable individual, a bridge between worlds. Born a descendant of those Christian captives, grew up trilingual Greek, Latin, Gothic. Perfectly positioned him to become the first Gothic bishop around 340 AD.
At the vanguard of religious and cultural transformation.
His understanding of both Roman and Gothic worlds made him uniquely capable of mediating.
And then he did something groundbreaking. Created a Gothic alphabet to translate the Bible.
A monumental achievement. Literally gave the Goths their voice in the Christian world. He meticulously devised the alphabet, mostly Greek letters, some Latin, a few runes, specifically for translating scripture.
And Phyllis George has mentioned he translated almost everything except the books of Kings.
A fascinating detail. Reason given. Kings, full of war histories, deemed unsuitable for a war-loving Gothic people. They needed restraint, peace lessons, not incitement to fight.
A very revealing editorial choice.
Paternalistic, maybe, but shows how Roman Christians viewed the Goths.
So this wasn't just about faith, it was fostering literacy, creating a written culture. How significant was this?
Cannot be overstated. Fragments of his Gothic Bible survive invaluable linguistic, historical insights. The magnificent 6th century Codex Argenteus, the Silver Book.
Likely for Theodoric the Ostrogoth's court.
Probably. Our finest source for the Gothic New Testament, written in exquisite silver letters, gold capitals on purple-dyed parchment, showcases the artistic skill and reverence for this text in the barbarian kingdom.
Incredible craftsmanship.
Through Ulfila, Goths became the first Germanic people with a literate culture in their own alphabet. Though most known Gothic writing remains scriptural, it provided a foundational text, a shared cultural touchstone, distinct from Greek or Latin Christian cultures.
And his teachings spread, cementing Christianity further.
Yes, gained increasing support through the mid-4th century. His followers formed a distinct Gothic Christian community, eventually settled near Recopolis, near Durostorm, a stable base for the faith to grow, even amidst turmoil, a spiritual anchor.
And we have a tangible link to the Ostrogoths through his legacy.
That's right. The surviving manuscripts of Ulfila's Bible are notably Ostrogothic, not Visigothic, highly significant. Shows its continued use, importance, artistic reverence among the Eastern Goths long after the initial conversions, even after Hunnic rule.
A lasting legacy transcending politics.
Reinforcing a shared Gothic identity across branches.
Now, while many Goths converted, their adoption of Arian Christianity wasn't just religious. It had big political ramifications. A statement.
Precisely how Arianism became a potent political statement is fascinating. Fritigern embracing imperial Arianism, different from the Nicene orthodoxy favored by emperors, was a crucial internal Gothic political move.
Even though Catholic writers later called it an error.
Yes, but emperors like Theodosius had to acknowledge the Gothic confession, however grudgingly. This imperial recognition paved the way for royally led tribal churches among Germanic peoples, allowed Gothic kings control over religion, fostering independent governance.
So Arian churches weren't just in Gothic areas, but on Roman soil too.
This widespread Arian mission profoundly influenced Vandals, Burgundians, Lombards, others whose kingdoms were emerging on Roman territory. Adopting Arianism was often a deliberate statement of political, cultural independence from the increasingly Catholic Roman Empire.
A marker of their separate identity.
A visible one, a spiritual bulwark against Roman assimilation.
And just as deliberate and political for the Ostrogoths.
Absolutely. Ostrogothic leaders were Arian Christians before crossing into Pannonia in 455 after the Huns fell, explicitly a statement of political independence for their elites. Especially significant given the Huns they'd just overthrown rejected all Christianity.
So they kept a Christian identity distinct from Rome and distanced themselves from their former non-Christian oppressors.
Skillfully navigated a complex religious political landscape.
Must have created complex dynamics, especially in Constantinople, heart of the Eastern Empire.
It absolutely did. Presence of Arian Goths caused tension. In Constantinople, the Gothic bishop Johannes Chrysostomus actively supported Gothic church institutions. A church, a monastery.
Not just places of worship.
No, they liberally applied asylum rights to runaway Gothic soldiers, slaves, often opposing state law, protecting Goths from Roman authority. This open support later brought Chrysostomus under suspicion of collaborating with Goths, especially after General Gaius fell.
So even pastoral efforts were seen politically.
Deeply intertwined religion, identity, political loyalty in this volatile period. #tag key Gothic leaders and their shifting fortunes.
Let's turn to some key Gothic leaders who shaped this era. Starting with Athanaric, the Tervinci judge. Stands out as unyielding, principled early on.
Athanaric was indeed staunchly resistant, central in pushing back against Roman pressure. Even amidst famine, after that devastating Roman campaign, he maintained his strategy of independent Gothic action.
Only negotiated after avoiding annihilation.
Showed pragmatism, but a fundamentally unyielding spirit. His adherence to traditional Gothic paganism also shaped his anti-Roman stance, saw Roman influence as a threat to Gothic identity.
But he ended up in Constantinople. Quite a journey for someone resisting Rome.
Interesting turn. After the Danube crossing chaos, he'd sought refuge north of the Carpathians. Theodosius, I eventually won him over. Less about Athanaric changing his mind, more Theodosius's smart politics.
Using him as a counterbalance?
Exactly. Exploit internal Gothic disputes. But Athanaric's time in the Roman spotlight was brief. Died in Constantinople, 381 AD, reportedly awestruck by the city.
That inconceivable for his barbarian mind comment again.
Yeah, symbolizes that clash of worlds.
Then there's Fritigern, rebel leader, shrewd negotiator, ignited the revolt after Marcianopolis.
Master of leveraging desperation. His escape from that feast was pivotal, the ultimate catalyst. Quickly assumed leadership, unleashed that wave of destruction, turning Roman policies back on them, harnessed the collective anger.
Achieved big military successes early on, but showed limitations too.
Precisely. Great victory against Lupicinus, wiped out the Thracian army, showcased their open battle prowess. But failed attempts on Adrianople, Constantinople highlighted that lack of siegecraft, the Polia Sedeca.
A recurring frustration for them.
Definitely.
He also showed political skill, embracing Arianism.
Absolutely. Not just a warrior, a political pragmatist. Embracing Arianism was deeply strategic. Differentiated his people from Roman Orthodoxy, established a religious identity with lasting political implications. Helped consolidate his power.
Okay, now two Goths with very different paths. Gaius and Alaric. Gaius, the Romanized Goth, trying to make it within the Roman system.
Gaius represents that distinct path upward mobility in the Roman military political structure. Joined as an ordinary soldier, not a tribal leader. Swift promotion, important role after 393. Actively sought magister militum rank, emulating Stilicho.
Primarily a Goth and Roman service, detached from tribal roots.
That's the key distinction from Alaric. Sources suggest he lacked strong ties to his original group.
But his career wasn't smooth. Troubled, ended badly.
Indeed. Ambition, intrigue, ultimately downfall. Commanded foreign auxiliaries in the Eugenius campaign. Then, sent against the rebel Goth Leovigild in 399. He secretly collaborated with him.
To overthrow the Roman official Eutropius?
Exactly. Ruthless ambition playing a high-stakes imperial game. A survivor, but often broke the rules.
Almost made it to the top. Designated consul?
Incredibly close. Eliminated rivals, designated consul for 401, aiming for a generalissimus role like Stilicho. But his power grab led to being declared a state enemy in 400. Fueled by anti-Gothic feeling in Constantinople.
Followed by mob violence against Goths there.
Brutal mob violence. His attempt at a parallel power base failed. Thracian cities resisted his plundering forces, keeping peace with walls again, ultimately defeated by another Goth, Fervita, a loyal Roman general.
And Fervita got the consulate instead. Ironic.
Gainas' story is a cautionary tale. Barbarian general pushing Roman tolerance too far.
Then, stark contrast. Alaric. Tribal leader first. Scourge of Rome. Roman office secondary for him.
That's the absolute key difference. Alaric, first and foremost tribal leader. Roman office was a means to an end, complementary, never an alternative to being king of his people. Led that major revolt, raids in the Balkans from 395.
By the late 390s, the most prominent Gothic leader.
Undoubtedly. Commanded a large, cohesive force, constantly pressuring Rome for land, supplies, status.
His campaigns in Italy really shook Rome.
Absolutely destabilizing. Famously cut off supplies to Rome itself, forced the city to pay that huge ransom: gold, silver, garments, provisions, unprecedented humiliation.
And his forces got stronger.
Reinforced in 409 by his brother-in-law Ataulf, bringing Gruthun and Hunnish cavalry from Pannonia. This infusion of mobile cavalry decisively shifted the Visigothic army structure primacy to mounted units, strengthened the Gothic aristocracy, too, made them even more formidable.
He had that intense rivalry with Stilicho, the Roman general of Vandal descent.
Legendary confrontations. Cat and mouse across Italy. Easter 402, Stilicho surprises Alaric, forces him to abandon camp. Booty. Alaric keeps his cavalry, though.
Battle at Pollentia ended in a draw.
Hard-fought draw, more tense negotiations. Second battle near Verona, summer 402. Alaric suffers a critical defeat, loses mobility, hit by hunger, disease, desertion.
And figures like Ulfilas the commander, not the bishop, and Sarus deserted Alaric then.
Yes, join the Romans. Alaric's defeat was a convenient pretext for Sarus, from the Balthi royal line, to break with the Balthic king. Personal game, strategy, shows the shifting loyalties, brutal realities of survival and ambition.
Even top leaders faced internal challenges, betrayals.
Vividly illustrates that loyalty was fluid. Hashtag outro.
And with that, our deep dive into the Huns' arrival, the Goths' separation and transformation. Well, it comes to a close for now. We've seen how external pressures reshaped destinies, internal dynamics forged new identities, and figures like Athanaric, Fritigern, Ulfila, Gainas, Alaric navigated this incredibly complex, dangerous world.
It really is a powerful testament to their resilience, their adaptability. They didn't just survive. They emerged from the shadow of Huns and Rome with new identities, new political structures, a distinct religious character, laid the groundwork for those successor kingdoms.
A fascinating mix of military might, political cunning, evolving religious identity.
A truly unique, captivating historical tapestry.
So what does this all mean for you, listening? It means history is rarely a straight line. Even in what looks like utter collapse, there's potential for new beginnings, surprising transformations, new identities forged under pressure.
Yeah, it's a reminder that seemingly fixed ethnic or cultural identities are often far more fluid, more dynamic than we realize. Constantly redefined by external forces, internal choices.
The story of the Goths, their struggles, migrations, their profound impact, it's far from over. And in the next part, we will continue our study into their incredible journey, tracing their path through the shaping of early medieval Europe.